Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Maddy on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from St. Paul. I mean, another Minnesotan on the podcast, basically. I've liked to have more Minnesotans on because, let's be honest, I hate talking to those stupid Californians and Floridians who just talk about how great the weather is and how warm it is, and you're just like, okay, screw you. Especially, as we get into the winter, which is unfortunately going to rear its ugly head here in a couple of months. But before we get into all that and depress everyone, yeah, she's a bodybuilder. She's competed in a show, and she was getting ready for the Twin Cities, the show that I actually went to a couple weeks ago. But she'll tell us the whole story about that because it's an interesting story. But before we get into all that, Maddy, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. And, I normally ask what the weather's like, but being that we are, within, like 10, 15 miles of each other, I'm not even going to ask it. It's gloomy here, but she did, when she first answered, it looked like it's sunny at least over there. So, who knows what it's going to be like. But yeah, let's just dig right into it. Maddy, why don't you just give us your backstory first off on what inspired and motivated you to eventually become a bodybuilder and how that's been like for you?
Okay, so I haven't been bodybuilding for long at all. How it started. So it kind of all started sort of. I guess the idea of it was actually like mid-COVID when like literally everything was like shut down, which is like kind of a funny time. So I live in Minnesota. Everything was closed in Minnesota. I worked out, like that's kind of what I did, but I wasn't serious about it. And I actually went over to Hudson, Wisconsin during the time of the lockdown because their gyms were open over there and it gave me something to do. I was like, I still want to work out. Like I would go crazy if I didn't work out. And what happened was like, I think all of the bodybuilders, like they all went to Hudson because, they're like, we need the gym. So it was like Maddy Loehr and then like a bunch of bodybuilders. I was like, wow, like, I'm used to working out at like Planet Fitness. I'm a little like out of place right now. It's fine. And then I met one girl. Her name is Savannah. Absolutely love her. And I would say she's the reason that I do everything I do today. She came up and talked to me. I mean, she was this like super jacked, like good looking, like girl, so strong. Like I watched her deadlift all this weight and I was just so impressed by her. I was like, coolest person ever. And she asked me one day, she's like, you're always at the gym. She's like, have you ever thought about competing? And I look at her and I'm like, no, like immediately no. I'm like, you people are crazy. I'm like, I
think that every podcast, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's just what I thought. I like was like, no, I don't want to even look like that. I don't like not my thing. I'm like, I like to come to the gym and just work out. I love that, but I also realized like, I work out so that I can like eat whatever I want to eat. Like you will never catch me like weighing my food, like sticking to a meal plan. That is just not gonna happen. So I told her, I said no. I'm like, not a chance. And she's like, okay, well, like you should just think about it. I was like in my head in the moment, I was just, I'm like, sure, I'll think about it. And I saw her there a few more times and we talked. I like really looked up to her. I just thought she was cool because, she looked great and she could pull a lot of weight. But then I kind of started thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I'm like, maybe I could do this. And then I was like, I could just do like one show and then be done with it and just to say I did it. So I held on to that thought for like a while. And then I would say it wasn't till like a year later when I actually started like looking for a coach. And I went through a lot of coaches. I spent so much time searching. I just never really found one that I liked. I was kind of like, no, like they said this, I don't like this. So I was just like, no. And then one day I went to Los Campeones gym and I talked to like 3 people and every single person there was like, if you're looking for a good coach, like you need to talk to this guy, Jeff. Like Jeff. I just kept hearing Jeff. I was like, okay. I'm like, who's Jeff? So I looked him up and I just thought like, okay, I'm going to meet up with him, see what he has to say. And after that, I was like so set. Like, I don't know what it was like about that conversation, but I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm all in right now. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this guy's great. Like, he's going to help me and it's going to be awesome. And then we just started training. And I think, I just still in my head, I was like, one time, but the more I got into it, the more like I just absolutely fell in love with it and like every single part of it. I was counting my macros, I was weighing my food, I was following these workouts, cardio. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And now I'm like, there's no way I could do one show. Then I started thinking like, I want to get my pro card. So that's, the next step, like pro card. And now after that, I'm like, well, you know what? Like, let's aim for the Olympia. Like, let's like dream so big and like see what I can do.
It's like a drug, everyone. I mean, once you get your first, I mean, I've heard so many of my guests that come on, about half of them say that, like, they're just like you. I just want to do one show, and then I just want to get over, and the next thing you know, they're at the Olympia, like you're talking about. But first of all, I got to ask, what did Jeff say to you that made you go all in? Do you remember what he said?
I think it was just him, like, as like, he's very like, how do I just everything he says is good. You can tell he's so passionate. And I think his passion, honestly, is like what made me passionate. And I mean, he's a coach. I never met up with a coach where it's like he takes his clients' success like so personally. Like, there is nobody that wants me to succeed like more than my coach does. And like that's just like that's what I need. He's such a good coach. He's such a good mentor. He's such a just a good person to have in my life. And I mean, every day, like, I just want to make Jeff proud because he gives me his like 200%, like more than that. And it just makes you want to like give him more. And like, that's somebody that I would like want to work with, just because of who he is.
And I mean, one thing about this lifestyle that I noticed, especially going to the show that I went to, but I mean, I knew a lot about it before, is like just how well connected everyone is and how everyone really does seem to care about each other. I mean, I saw dozens of people throughout the show just running up to the front of the audience just so they could take their photos with their friends and cheering everyone on and just all that stuff that went with it. And that's very rare in a lot of sports, that you see so many people like genuinely care about each other and cheer each other on. What was that like when you first realized that about this sport? Because that is one thing that really, I think is a good reason why a lot of people stay in this sport, is just because they have that support.
Yes. So I remember after my first show, I was my dad came and talked to me and he goes, "What's it like back there?" He's like, "I bet those girls are just so mean to each other. Like, I bet you guys are all just so jealous." I'm like, "Dad, like, not at all. Like, I did not expect when I started this sport to like gain the group of people that I did and the support and the love like that I did. Like, that is like so far, like, I could honestly argue has been the best part. Like, the friendships that I've like formed, the cool people I've met along the way. I mean, it's just so supportive and there's no like jealousy or like anything like negative I've experienced at all. I mean, there's a girl on my team, her name's Liz. So she's also a figure competitor. And at the show I did, Bruce City, like, we were technically like competing against each other, like we're in different classes. And, it was hard. People were always comparing us. Like, they're like, how do you think Liz is going to do? And I'm like, you know what? Like, I want Liz to do well. Like, yes, I'm like competing against her, but I'm like, she's so inspiring. Like, I so much look up to her. I'm like, obviously I want to win, right? But it's like I'm also like rooting and like cheering for this other girl. And so it's like a weird thing. It's like I don't know, but it's great. I'm glad it's that and it's not like, oh, like it's like, us versus us. It's not that at all. It is, but it's like it's not.
Yeah, there were three of my former guests that I had on that came and sat by me for about probably about half an hour, and then they were like, "Okay, sorry, I got to go down. My friend's competing and doing her show or whatever like that." And then they ran to the very front to go and take their photos. So yeah, that was one thing that really surprised me as well, just how much of a sisterhood it really is. And I really think it's just all down to like joint suffering. You guys know what you guys go through, and it's just like, yeah, we bonded through all of this. But I normally bring up nutrition. What do you got to the left of you right there? What are you eating right now for nutrition?
You can see this
I can see it. Yeah, I have. Yep.
sandwich but this is like great. So I'm in my off season right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just counting macros. So I have like a ton of freedom right now with it. I mean, I got to stay within my macros, but and I eat clean, but it's kind of like I can eat what I want, you know.
What is your favorite cheat meal?
I would probably have to go with sushi. If that's like, I mean, it depends, like, cause I can make it so that it fits in my like macros if I just eat like a salmon avocado roll. But if I'm gonna go crazy with it, I mean, you know, you can do like the specialty rolls, the fried rolls and all that.
I had sushi once and it did not end well. And there's a video on the internet somewhere of me, my friend. She took me out for lunch, and then she's like, "Yeah, let's go. You've never had sushi," and she knows that I love chicken, so she's like, "Just have some tuna or whatever. Just have like a tuna roll or something like that. Like you'll be fine." It's got to be cooked. That's one thing that I found out. You know, if it's not cooked, you know, yeah. There's a video of me trying to eat it and then realizing that it is just not for me. So, yeah, that's. I mean, my thing would always be like I've told a million people on this podcast. I would just rent out a Five Guys for a night and just say you're feeding me until I either pass out, puke, or die. You know, either way, I'm getting my money's worth. But I also love to talk genetics on this podcast because so many people do not understand that look that a lot of these bodybuilders achieve, a lot of it is due to the genetic factor. Now, let's be honest, a lot of it is due to the hard work and sacrifice as well. But I hear this all the time. Oh my God, I want his arms. I want her abs. I want their back. You just want to strangle them because you're just like, you do not understand that you can train just as hard as them. You can eat just like them. You can do everything that they do. You are not going to look just like them because unfortunately people are built differently. But whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion. For me, my back was the one thing that really took off for me because in college, I just worked warehouse jobs where you either got a really nice back or you quit, basically. But being 6'3", my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot. Where, I mean, I could inject pure muscle into my legs. I've made this joke a million times, and they still would not get... Don't even get me started on calves. I could do 10,000 calf raises. That's the most genetic body part. But luckily, at the show, I did feel better about my calves because I saw some of those guys up there with their calves, and I was like, okay, Ryan, you were worrying a little too much about your calves. It's kind of weird now where it's like, okay, it's better now. But what was one body part that really took off for you, and what was one body part that you just had to drag behind?
Okay, so I don't know what it is, but like I have massive arms. Like the most random, like I love training them, but like I don't really
She's a gym bro, everyone.
like my biceps especially, like they're really big. I don't know. I'd have really good arms, I guess. So those really took off, and those don't even really matter that much for like my division. Like it's just kind of a bonus. Like I think it's kind of cool. I got bigger arms than a lot of guys. But the part that's lacking for me, I would say probably the same as you, my legs. Um, my quads, you know, they made a lot of progress, but for me, it's hard to grow my legs. I don't know what it is. Like my upper body, I think can just like awesome, but my legs, I don't know. And I also don't like training legs. Like I try very hard. Like I, you know, become super locked in like during my leg days because I realize like I need to grow them, but they just don't want to grow.
I've met a handful of people that like training legs, and that is a mental illness that I do not even want to tap into, everyone. Because yeah, if you like training legs, it's like, okay, you're either a soccer player or a gymnast or something. Those are the demographics that I've really found are just like the people that really, are the only ones that can really suffer through leg training and actually enjoy it. But I mean, bodybuilding is so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport. And people do not talk about that. I mean, people might walk up to you in public if they haven't seen you for a while and be like, oh my God, Maddie, you look amazing. They don't realize that mental change that has happened though as well, which is 100 times more important than any of the physical change. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. I mean, the beginning of prep, I would say my mentalness, like I was mentally ready. Physically, I was ready to go. Like I was, yep, like gonna do it. But mentally, I just had this attitude where I was like, I don't know, like it's gonna be so hard, like all this. And, you know, my coach sent me a message after I saw him like one Saturday, and I think he could tell like I was just off. And he told me like keep your chin up, like you look great, like you're gonna be okay, like you need to get there mentally. And after that I was like, you know what, like he's right. Like if mentally I'm not there, I'm gonna fail at this prep. Like it's still early on. Like I have such a long ways to go. Like I need to like turn it on. I need to like, I need to change something up here. And the second I did that, it was like a lot easier. It was a lot of work. I mean, mentally you have to always like be thinking like, you gotta be there. I would say too, like the more deeper I got into prep though, I became so like not myself and so just like brain fog. Like I kind of like was just like my mood was always just like straight or like really low. And it was, mentally it was hard because like you're trying to like be there mentally, but mentally you're struggling because you're not eating and your body's like going through this like really hard thing. Um, so I think, at the end mentally it was just bad. And then I got sick and my life just like it was a lot. And so like right now it's actually funny that you like ask that because like right now I would say I'm working more on like my mental health than like even my physical. I'm just like, you know what? Like we need to find Maddie again. Like I got to figure out who Maddie is, like just kind of come back and like recollect and just to, like be the best me I can be in every like aspect because prep kind of took that away. Like I didn't realize it when I was in it till I was like done and I was like back to normal and I could like feel like different feelings again, like happiness. I didn't realize like how mentally challenging prep would be. And so I think about like my next prep, which won't be for a long time, but like I just need to spend so much time working on my mental health before I'll be able to put myself through something like that again.
So many people that aren't in this lifestyle just think that if they just get in shape, it will solve everything, like all of their problems. And I've talked to some of the most in shape people on the planet, and it's like it does not solve that whole mental side of things. I mean, you really have to be dialed in mentally. And I mean, you mentioned that you got sick, but we talked about this right before we started recording. You got COVID right before the Twin Cities. What was that like? Because, like you said, you were out of it for a while.
Yep. So the Twin Cities is the show that I was actually like looking forward to the most. I did the Bruce City 2 weeks prior, and I told myself like this is the practice show. Like it wasn't a practice; it was the real thing. But I was just so excited for the Twin Cities Open. I mean, it's by far the best show you could go to. And I was so excited for it. And then right 2 days after Bruce City, like so sick, like down, like just so bad. And I'm like, I just got done with a show. Like my body is just going through a lot. I'm like, I'm gonna get better. Like I'm gonna get better. And it was just like a downhill. Like there was no getting better. Like it was like I was getting worse by the day. And I honestly didn't get out of bed till 2 days before the TCO. So I wasn't able to like reverse diet. I wasn't able to work out. Like I was so shredded, lost like 10 pounds in these 2 weeks, looked horrible. Like, I don't know. I was so
I saw
depressed.
her at the TCOs. Everyone, she looked fine. Okay, let's be honest here.
Even now, I'm still like, oh my gosh, like what happened? Like, just going from like such an extreme good to like I looked like I like have never worked out before. In which when I was sick, I had like no definition. Like my abs were the first to go. It was bad. It was bad. Maybe I think it was worse than other people do, but for me, it was really bad.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I was talking to someone that I already had on the show. They were sitting right next to me, and they go, "Oh, so you plan to have anyone on here that's like that's gonna be on and stuff?" And I go, "Oh, well, there's a girl that's not competing right now." And I was like, "Oh, her name's like Maddie or whatever." And then I think you were sitting like 3 rows ahead of us, and I just pointed. I was like, "Oh, she's there right there." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, she looks like she could compete right now." That's what the guests told me. Okay, everyone. So I'm just gonna say that right then and there. Okay, so don't beat yourself up too badly because yeah, I think you still looked great, but yeah, that COVID and I mean. I remember the one time I got really bad with the flu when I was like in my best shape in my early 20s and I lost, yeah, like 10, 15 pounds. And it is hard to look at yourself in the mirror then after a while and just realize that like, hey, it's going to take some time to really put that on. But How did you deal with that whole thing mentally? Because I mean, that would be very hard for me to go through. Like, you get all ready for a show, and then next thing you know, you just get COVID. How did you just process all that mentally without just going crazy? Because I've had times where I've gone pretty crazy just from stuff like that happening.
I went crazy.
Hey,
Like,
she admits it, everyone. Okay, so that there's that.
I went crazy and I hit such a low, um, where after that I was like, I need to do something. Like I hit rock bottom, like at that point, and it wasn't just my show, like it was so much like went on. And I now feel like I've gotten to a place where like, okay, like I'm good, like I figured it out. But I honestly think like all that happened for like a reason because I was like just so like I don't know. I was so bad. Like I had all this stuff that I like it just everything kind of like had to blow up for me to like be able to grow and me to realize like, hey, like there is more to life. You obviously have a lot of work you need to do like on yourself. And it was, I mean, I'm looking at it now as like a good thing, but in the moment, like I did go crazy. I was, for one, like prepping for this show since February, and this was like the end goal. And to have that like taken away from me, like so close, like that was horrible. Like that was so hard. And I mean, that was just one thing, like of the many million things that like just like happened in my life in like a matter of like literally 2 weeks. Um, so it was hard. Like I did go crazy. I just it was a mess. And that's like we were gonna meet earlier for like the podcast, but that's why like I was like, sorry, like I just can't right now. Like
Well,
I
she said I got COVID, and I was like, oh, no worries at all. I totally
that
understand it.
was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
part of it. Like it was everything. So I mean I didn't handle that well. I did go crazy and now I'm just like realizing like, hey, like we can't do this again. Like you have a lot of work to do. And like right now I'm just like in the stages of like doing the work, you know, reading all these books, listening to podcasts, like figuring it all out.
I only do a comedy podcast myself. I mean, that's the only thing. That's my entire cardio is just listening to comedy podcasts. That's about the only time I really do that. But I mean, this whole sport, when I look at it from an outsider's point of view, like someone like I told you, I had a 4.5 week prep, everyone, where I was to the books, and then all of a sudden, I just had that urge to just eat some hot dogs, and then it all went downhill from there. But how do you deal with this whole side of the sport where it's like you are a lot of restricted? I mean, especially when it comes to friendships, a lot of times we hear on this podcast where it's like you're going to be that one girl that shows up with salad and water basically at restaurants, and people are just like, oh yeah, there's Maddie doing her thing. And it's just, especially around friends and family too, or with the family side, if it's any time during the holidays or if it's any time, like going out to eat, it's a lot of sacrifice. How did you deal with that side of things where you just had to, sort of be that girl that like brings the salad to the restaurant, or be that person that like, oh no, sorry mom, I can't eat that, I gotta have this?
Yep. So I mean I think for most bodybuilders, I would say that's probably the hardest part, you know, like the nutrition. For me, what it came down to was at the end of the day, like, what's more important to me? Like, is it more important to me right now to like eat that cookie, to eat that thing, to eat whatever I want to eat, or to win? Like, at the end of the day, like, win my show. Like, what?
For me, it depends on the type of cookie, let's be honest.
There was so many times. Like, every time I go home, you know what? I swear, my family was eating crumble cookie like every week of my prep. I'm like, why do we always have this here? And like in my off season, there was never crumble cookie at my house, but like I was in prep always. Um, but yeah, it's just at the end of the day, it's like what's more important. You know, you got to be stronger than what your like head is telling you, because like my head every time was like you can take a bite, like one bite won't hurt you. Like there was a voice, and like I worked at a restaurant, I was surrounded by food constantly, and like you just have to be so strong like in the head and be like, no, like I'm not even gonna take one bite, like I'm just not.
I mean, working at a restaurant while being on prep, that is dedication that I could never fathom myself. So hey, more power to you. I mean, that's taking it. I mean, we've had a couple of bakers on the show too that also compete, and that's that and working in a restaurant, you're just like, how are you doing this? But hey, you guys pulled through. But one thing that I also have to talk about is posing, because not a lot of people understand that posing is the hardest thing for a lot of the guests that I have on. It's harder than your nutrition, it's harder than working out for a majority of the guests, I would say. What is your relationship with posing been like?
So I have a really great posing coach. And I've been posing for a really long time. Like even in my off season I started. I think a lot of mistake people make is they wait till prep to start posing, and like that's just not enough time. It's really not. You got to start like way before that. So I would meet with my posing coach like every Saturday morning since like August. So it wasn't quite a year, but I would say it was about a year. And every Saturday I met with her, and like, we would go through everything. And then I also tried to do it like as much as I could on my own after like every workout. And I felt like I was, really well prepared, which I'm like thankful for, because I know like there were some people back there that are like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm like, how are you going to get up there and like not know what you're doing? Because I got up there and I don't even remember being up there. Like I froze, and the only thing that was going was like my muscle memory. Like I was shaking, I was nervous, I like did it, but I'm like blacked out up there. I'm like, I'm so glad that I practiced as much as I did, because otherwise I would have just absolutely blanked.
It really does come down to, yeah, just the whole muscle memory, where there have been, yeah, sports that I've done where there have been moments where my legs were shaking and stuff like that on the walking up to the mountain or anything like that. And yeah, it really just takes over, just all of that training and like really experience that you have. But out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
Favorite out of the poses that I do. I think I really like my front pose, which I was surprised about because, like, at first when I started, I didn't really love that one, but that one's probably my favorite. Um, I wish I could get up there and like flex my biceps and do some of these like male bodybuilding things. Like that's really what I want to do. But women's posing isn't really like that. So I would say my front pose is probably my favorite. I don't love like the side ones just because I think they're kind of awkward. Like if you look at like figure posing, it's like a weird thing like to turn, and like when you're in that position, like you really can't breathe like good at all. So I was glad the judges were like turning me pretty fast, because like when you're holding that, like I'm not breathing like I should be, but I really can't figure it out.
Hey, give yourself 3 to 4 years, you'll be a physique competitor. Then, if you want to do if you want to do the front double. But no, that's one thing too. That I was like, yeah, why don't they just let them just do those poses? Because it's like you're doing like four like mandatory poses, and they're great poses and stuff. But it's like some people like you, like I've had some figure compares on too, where it's like, yeah, their arms or there's other areas that like really take off. Where it's like just let them just do like a whole like not a whole like mandatory round, but like just a whole round where it's like, okay, do what pose you think is most comfortable for you or something like that. Just or just something like that. Where I wish they would do something like that. But I mean, post show blues is something that is not talked about as much as it should be. And you are coming off of, you competed in the show, and then you're coming off of, basically the end of your first prep that you did. What has that been like for you, just sort of realizing that, like, hey, this look that I've worked so hard to maintain and achieve, like, I am not going to be able to keep it? What has that been like, sort of adjusting to the fact that, like, I am going to have to put on some size after this show?
Yep. So that's a good like subject actually to talk about. So for me, I wasn't able to reverse diet. And I after my show, I was like ready. I was like, I'm taking this reverse diet so seriously because I want to like, still look as good as I can. But then obviously I got sick. I was sad. I was eating cookies. I was like, I ate cookies is what I ate. And soup. Cookies and soup. So, the reverse diet just didn't happen. And I mean, if you're not reverse dieting, like it's gonna hit you, and it caught up to me. And right now I'm like nearly not where like I want to be, but I'm finally like back on track. I'm counting macros, I'm back in the gym, so it's getting better, right? But it is really hard because I feel like I gained a lot of like following, and I gained a lot of opportunity in prep, and people really liked the like shredded like Maddy Loehr. Like that's what they were looking for, and that's like what got the likes and all that. And so,
And then they look at her now and they just go, "You gross. What's going on with?" No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, they're like, "Are you okay?" No, they're still all here, but it's hard because I felt like that's the side of me that people want, and now I'm not that anymore because it's not attainable at all. So I'm kind of still like working through that because it's like a weird thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are people gonna think I just absolutely like let myself go? Like, what are people gonna think of me? And I don't know why I'm so worried about that. Like, I shouldn't be, but
Maddie,
you
again, I just gotta say, letting yourself go is if you add like 50 pounds, okay? Like,
know,
you
I know what
still look very great. You still very, letting yourself go is if you literally look like a Rosie O'Donnell or something like that in like a month, okay? That's letting yourself go. I just gotta put that out there.
I know. I'm just so hard on myself. I know I do
You
look
wouldn't
good.
be a good bodybuilder if you weren't, though. Let's be honest. You have to be extremely hard on yourself if you want
I
to
do.
be any bit successful in this sport. Yeah.
Yes, I have very high expectations for myself. And right now I'm just like I'm not there, but I know I will get there again. But my biggest thing is like I realize I have to put on weight. I realize I have to grow because like at the end of the day, like how we talked about earlier, like if I want my pro card, like this is the next step. Like I can't just be skinny and shredded forever. Like I can't do that. Like I have these goals and there's uncomfortable like steps, like part of the process, part of the journey, like that you're gonna go through. And I don't know, growing, I have like mixed feelings about it. Like I want to get bigger. I want to like be stronger. I want all these things, but like, the look when you're used to being so shredded, like it's hard. It is hard. Um, but I mean, I'm working on it and I'm happy with myself, but like us bodybuilders, like we always want to be better. Like, you can be proud of like where you're at, but like always like keep working. Always, you want to be the best you can be. But I don't know. I'm slowly getting there where I'm like, you know what? Like I want to grow. I do. So I gotta get there.
If there was one thing I could change, it would be that I do wish, and I know why it's like the way it is, but I do wish women would have sort of more of like the male mindset when it comes to their off season, whereas we're just like, yeah, put 30, 40 pounds on. I don't care, whatever. I'll eat whatever the heck I want. I don't care. So I wish that would be the case. Obviously, I know why it's not, but it's like that's what I just wish because I've had so many women on the podcast. It's like they put on like 10 pounds, then they like oh my god, I look gross, and it's just like. But again, I gotta realize I'm talking to bodybuilders, everyone. So it's like you just gotta be like, no, you look great. And I've had some people like right before a show message me like some of their like posing photos, and they're like, do you think I look great for a show? And I was like, you're an idiot. Look in the damn mirror yourself. Like you look great. Like what are you asking me for? Like you look. So yeah, that's the whole body dysmorphia thing, which is a case all in of itself, which I love to just mention to people. It's like you still look better than 99.9% of the public. But I mean, let's also be honest too. You're not the average looking woman. If you were to walk out in public, even the way that you look right now, even as you're down on yourself right now, even the way you're looking right now, you still draw people's attention. I like to compare it to like being a mini celebrity, where it's like people just they're drawn to things that aren't of the normal. So like when they see someone that's really in shape, they're just like, oh wow, that's something else. What has that been like for you, especially since you just kind of like went on your first prep to just sort of for the first time really deal with that reaction that you get when you're that lean and that shredded? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I got that like towards the end of my prep, like everywhere you go, everyone, are you a trainer? Are you a trainer? Yeah, I mean, people loved it. I felt like I could like towards the end, like I just looked so jacked, like I could walk down the roads of Minneapolis and like no one was gonna mess with me, like no one's gonna say anything, like they're just gonna be nice to you.
During the day, maybe, but during the night, that's a whole different. No, I'm just kidding.
Night probably I wouldn't do it, but
Yeah.
like even the day sometimes it can be scary to walk down those streets. And I was like, no, like
Okay, wait, hang on. The most important part of the podcast just happened. I heard a dog make a noise in the background. What kind of dog do you have?
She's an Australian Shepherd. She's been here the whole time. She's been being good, but now she wants my sandwich.
I am the biggest dog lover on the planet, so that is great. We have a little Cavachon. Your dog would step on it and probably kill it. It's a little like 10-pound. Her name is Gracie, but she would go absolutely crazy if she saw it. Like for some reason, we don't know why she hates other dogs, but like she's one of those where she'll bark until you finally get like within 2 feet of her, and then she'll roll over because she knows the fight's over. Then because it's like she put up a good fight, but it's over then already. But that is great. What's your dog's name?
Her name's Coney. Do you want to see her?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Coney, do you want to say hi?
Oh my god, that is cute.
She is my little baby.
That's what I love about Australian Shepherds and like Husky kind of is that they have those blue eyes.
I know.
Oh, That is so
Got
cute.
to decide.
I mean, that is the one thing that makes cardio a little bit easier for bodybuilders is getting a dog too, I will say.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, and I mean, well, speaking of the devil, I hate cardio more than life itself. I have told my friends the only time you're ever going to see me run is you have to be chasing me with a knife. That's like the only scenario where you're ever going to see me run. Now, I live next to Bush Lake, so I got a lot of nature walks and stuff that I can do in Normandale Lake, and so I do that all. I mean, actually, honestly, when I'm done talking to you, I'll go for a walk right then and there so I can get done during the day. But so I love walking, I love biking, but unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you kind of deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship with cardio?
I don't like it either. No, I'm just kidding. So, during my off season, it was fine. My coach had me doing it like once a week. It was like a 45 minutes on a rest day, and I was like, "Oh, this is fine." Then prep happened, and towards the end, I was doing 45 minutes fasted every morning, and that was like the worst ever thing. I love like lifting weights, all that, but like there's something about just like on a treadmill, like walking, uphill that it was horrible. And fasted, I was so hungry. Like, you wake up and it's like you can't go eat. It's like, no, you gotta go do your cardio first. There was days where I was like, I'm gonna pass out on this like treadmill. Like I can't do it, but you have to do it. So that prep kind of made me hate cardio a little bit for sure. Because I didn't mind it too much before. Um, but that whole fasted every day, like, was not it at all.
I mean, I have a friend that runs marathons, and that's a whole different type of mental illness. That's just, I mean, he just did the grandma's marathon up in Duluth, and I wanted to just go up there with a sign that just says, "You didn't have to do this" at the end of it, and just be like, "Why are you?" So, again, but like, so how do you keep yourself entertained during cardio? Please tell me that you have music or TV shows, something like that, because I've talked to people that are the sickest people on the planet that like literally have nothing going, and they're just walking, and you're just like, "Okay, psycho, it was fun having you on, but let's wrap it up right now," you know?
So, oh my gosh, like, no, honestly, I think I tried to not be on my phone like during my cardio because, like, at first, oh, my
Oh,
dog
no
wants to get
problem,
me.
no problem.
So at first, like, I would like be on my phone, and then I was like there with my boyfriend, and he's like, "Get off your phone." He's like, "You get locked in," and I'm like, "Shut up! Like, I don't care. It's cardio." But he's like, "Do you want to be the best?" And I'm like, "Okay, yes, you're right." So I wouldn't be on my phone during cardio. I literally did it in the same place every day, and the treadmill, like, it was faced against a wall. Like I looked at a wall, and I just was like zombie walking up the thing every morning. Like the time just went by and it felt like I was on there forever. But I just did it and it just happened. I just looked at a wall and I just would walk till I saw the little 45. I'd watch the time. Sometimes I would try to not because when you watch it, it goes like even slower than when you're not. So I just did it. I just died every morning.
That's why I go outside, everyone, because I found that like being on the treadmill, yeah, you look at the time so much, and then it's just like I can only compare it to like being in school when you're like, okay, we got 2 hours left, and then all of a sudden the clock just stops for about an hour, and you're just like, where is it? So yeah, I go outside, and then I just have so many. I know the exact length of so many songs that I use that I know exactly where I'm at in my walk based on what song is on and where it's at in the song or what podcast I'm listening to and how much. Oh yeah, this is probably like the 15-minute mark of the podcast, and I look and it's like, oh yeah, it's like that. So yeah, that's the only way that I really, do that myself. But the most important part of this lifestyle is sleep. I don't care what anyone says. The most important part of any life is sleep, and anyone that disagrees with me, like, yep, see, tongue tied and twisted happened right there. We almost got through it, everyone. We got pretty close to the end here, but so sleep. The most
Yes.
important thing. I mean, anyone that disagrees with me on that, I always tell them go pull an all-nighter and then try to work out and tell me how that works out for you. Now it can be done. Now that you will enjoy it, that is a whole different story. Twice in college, I had to work out on zero sleep because I pulled an all-nighter. Well, they, I would say studying, but that was not the case. I was not studying. But it happens. So, and then I went to go work out, and I lasted about halfway through both times, and I had to just leave and go back and go to sleep. But what is your relationship like with sleep? Because I mean, you bodybuilders, as you get closer to a show, people do not understand that you guys can get so tired that you aren't able to sleep, which that seems kind of like an oxymoron, but it's like, it's the truth. So how do you deal with just the bipolarness of sleep that really comes with being a competitor?
Yeah. So towards I guess at the beginning of my prep, I would say my sleep, I was getting like 8 hours sleep. Like it was fine. I was doing a lot. I was working like,
Eight
you know, I,
hours of sleep? What the hell's wrong with you?
yeah, I,
8 hours of sleep on a prep? Some people I talk to, like, are lucky if they get like 3 or 4.
this is the beginning. This
Oh,
is
okay.
the very early on stages. Like I was still able to like function. I was working all these jobs. I had to pick up another job just to pay for my like show. So I was grinding like at the beginning of my prep, but my food wasn't that low yet. So I was able to sleep, like everything was good. Then it was like the closer I got, the more it was like I was realizing like, hey, I can't do all this anymore. Like it was too much. So towards the end of prep, like the last couple of weeks, like I didn't even work. I was very lucky because my boyfriend, like, he did everything. Like he was like just so good to me. Like if it wasn't for him, like I really wouldn't have made it through the prep. Um, so I was able to just kind of like spent a lot of time at home. Took a lot of naps. Like that's what helped me because at night it would be hard sometimes. Like you're so hungry or like I can't go to bed right now. So I was able to take naps during the day. I was kind of like a stay-at-home dog mom for a little bit of time. And he'd go to work, he'd clean the whole house, he'd cook for me, he got my groceries, like
And
he did
at work, they're telling them, "Oh, what do you think your girlfriend's doing right now? She's probably taking a nap, doing her thing."
nap at home. He was like working his butt off, and he's like, I don't know, he probably hated me for it. Like I just was sleeping all day. I'm like, can you do that? I can't.
As you can tell, unfortunately, I have the type of ADD where I cannot nap no matter how hard I try. Like, I will just lay down and have my eyes closed and nothing will happen. So, yeah, I've napped probably about a handful of times my entire life. I will say, though, the one thing that I like about not being able to nap is that you just feel so confused when you get up from a nap. Like, you're like, where am I? What year am I? And it's like, oh, you've only been asleep for like an hour, and you feel like you've just like, you're like, what's going on here? And then it messes you up so much. At least in my case, where literally it's got like, I'm surprised that I didn't have a beard this long after taking just one nap, clean shaven. Just being like, how long have I been out? So, which by the way, everyone, I do got to bring in. This is the last podcast with the long beard. I am shaving it today because I do have a job interview tomorrow, and I don't want to go looking like a homeless person. So, everyone, enjoy it while it lasts. I will say, though, having a beard this long during the summer, it is not ideal, especially going out on walks. I mean, the sweat is the only positive is that like you get some chunks of chicken maybe left in after night, so then you have some snacks, the next day at least or something like that. It's like a refrigerator almost, but that's about it. That's the only really benefits to it. But yeah, I mean, sleep. Do not even get me. I mean, there are days that I know I'm just not going to work out because I get up and I'm like, I got like 2 hours of sleep, and I'm just like, it's not even going to be worth it to try. So if there's anything that I could tell anyone, it's like, yeah, just make sure to get that sleep and focus. But I mean, this is a question that I think to myself, every day that I have a bodybuilder on the podcast, and I've told you this before, but I mean, it's like, I ask myself, why do they do this to themselves? Why do they put themselves through this? I hear all these prep brain stories. I hear everything, and I'm just like, why do they do it? Now, granted, I know why you guys do it because I've talked to so many of you, and I've drank some of the Kool-Aid myself. I'm not going to lie, but like, even bodybuilders themselves when they're getting close to a show, and I can guarantee you felt this a dozen times at least. Why am I doing this myself? Why do I do it? So, and I bet friends and family ask you that question as well. What is your why? How do you like to respond to them when they ask you, like, Maddie, why are you putting yourself through this?
Yeah, I do it a lot for my younger self. Um, a lot for I think about her all the time. I played soccer like growing up, and I
I
played
knew
very.
it.
I knew it. Really, I look like a soccer player.
Well, yeah, yeah. You look at soccer. You don't have you don't yeah. You're not you give off. If you were to guess what sport, I would say either soccer or probably swimming would be the other one that I'd probably guess too, because of the upper body. Because you got a nice upper body if you're a swimmer. I had a girlfriend that was a swimmer, and they got the swimmer back where it's like hugging a tree basically, where you're just like, okay, yeah, like where's this end and where's this begin? So yeah.
So yeah, so I played soccer and very competitive. I had a coach. I won't like say any names here, but He was, the opposite of what my coach is now. I would not say he lifted me up. I would say he more so like tore me down, and it became very, very just toxic. Like I lost my love for the sport. I just couldn't do it anymore, and I quit. I quit soccer, and my goal was honestly to go play D1. Like that's what I wanted to do. But I couldn't. Like little me like couldn't handle the things said to me. The like how I was being pushed. It was not healthy at all. And so I quit. And after I quit, I heard he talked to the other girls on the team, and he said something along the lines of like, Maddie just wasn't strong enough to be here. She couldn't handle it. And like growing up, like for some reason that like I never got rid of that in my head. Like that I'm not strong enough, that I wasn't like, able to do something hard. So I think during my whole prep, like I wanted to prove to myself, like, no, like I am strong. And like at the end of the day, like I can do anything. Like if I told myself like I can do it, like I'll do it. So a lot of it was just, for her to like prove to little Maddie, like, hey, like, I wish I could hug myself.
Please tell me if that coach is still around, that you went up to him like as you were in your prepping, like, am I strong enough now? Just like threw some poses and stuff in front of him and stuff like that.
His ass, no. No, like I seriously, I thought about him when I was up there, like holding my first place medal. Like I was like, screw you, like look at this. Like I wish you could see me now. Like like I wish. Like I think about it all the time, and like every time I wanted to quit prep, I was like, no, you're not quitting. Like you're gonna do this. Like now I have all the support. Now I have a great coach. Like you can do it.
I had a very similar experience in baseball. It wasn't. I didn't. It was a little bit different, but yeah, I know. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, every football coach is like that too. Let's be completely honest. Where it's like you end up hating them. So yeah, that's a whole different side of the podcast. But yeah, I mean that why is just that is the thing that motivates people so much. And when you do have those days where you're not feeling it, when you're not just in the zone, how do you get yourself through that? Because I think that's the one thing that differentiates bodybuilders from the general public, is that the general public, they will find a way to not go to the gym. Whereas bodybuilders, I mean, you guys just through thick and thin, just find a way to push through. Where do you think that comes from for you? Is it part because like you're talking about your younger self, or what else do you try to use to like try to get yourself to go to the gym? Because it's powerful stuff, that what the mind can do, especially when it comes to motivation.
Yep. I think so much of it like is my younger self, and I mean growing up too, like I don't know why, like I worried so much about like everything. I was just a huge like worrier, and like I'm now like there were so many people I looked up to when I was like younger, and I like had this idea of like what I wanted to be. And I think it feels really good because I'm finally like reaching this point where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm becoming the person like I dreamed of being. Like when I would, go to the gym as like a high schooler, I was like, I just want to be like this girl. And like now I'm like realizing, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am that girl now. Like I am like what I always like wanted for myself. And like that feels so good. And like for like that little version of me, like I can never like, quit on her. I can never just like stop. And like now I'm like also at the point where I'm like, wow, like I am what I wanted to be. And then it's like, well, what's next? Now I have like a whole nother version of like what I want to be, an even better one. And that just like the whole wanting to get better and wanting to do better, like that's like what keeps me going. It gets me there on the days I don't want to go.
Yeah. I mean, this is a sport of definitely delayed gratification, as I always say. It's like you're not going to see these changes overnight. It takes some time, and that's the most impressive thing to me, at least, about the sport. And the fact that, like you said, like you had to get an extra job to go. People don't understand how much of a loss financially this sport is. You have to be like top 3 at the Olympia if you want to even like break even, really, with this sport, where it's that I talked to people and I was like, okay, that's a whole different level of just like dedication, where it's like you pay your own money to do this sport. To do, I mean, it's just, yeah, don't even get me started on that, where that is definitely one thing that I would change. It's like, yeah, if you got your pro card, you should definitely, be financially supported. But that also brings me into my final two questions. If someone were to walk up to you and say, Maddie, we made the decision, you can change one thing about just the fitness lifestyle in general or the sport of bodybuilding, whichever one you want to choose, and we would follow, that one decision that you made to change about the sport, what would be the one thing that you'd like to see change most?
That's a hard question.
You save them
Okay.
for the end.
I could change one thing. I think what I would change. Okay. I don't want to say like, well, how do I gotta figure out how to word this.
These are all edited to you, so you can say whatever you want.
I think some people really take a lot of things to, like, this sport is an extreme, yes. But there are some things like people will use to take the extreme to like an even more extreme, to a point where it's like, is this really worth it? Because like I do not think some of these extremes are very healthy. And that a lot of it is, I mean, I don't know, it's, we don't like to talk about it, but like steroids. Like some people will just abuse like the heck out of that. And that's one thing that I wish like we could change and like take
I
away.
have had women come on the podcast that have a deeper voice than me. I will just leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean,
That is one thing that I wish would be changed too. Where like, yeah, they would just, and I do think because like last year especially was such a watershed year where like so many people died. Like I think a lot of people just sort of realized that like, hey, I really need to either get more blood work done or just need to, dial things back a little bit. So I thought that there was at least that. But yeah, that would be one thing that, I mean, I always love having more than natural competitors on, because that to me is like, it's so inspiring. But again, like I don't care whether people take elephant testosterone or not or something like that. Like to me, like you still got to put the hard work in. But it's like, yeah, obviously, don't have gills coming out of your neck basically just from all the stuff. But it's like, I understand exactly what you're saying though, where it's like they needs to be a little bit more of a balance where like they don't, it shouldn't be catered more to the people that just abuse the crap out of stuff, because then everyone else feels that then they have to do that then to sort of keep up.
yep, that's perfect. I love how you said that. That's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. Yeah, it doesn't. So yeah, that would be one as well too. Yes, for me. And yeah, and I mean, Maddie, when we do have you on a year from now, because I'd love to talk to you in a year. Where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to just be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved in a year?
Oh gosh, a year. Okay. I think I'll be at a really exciting place in a year. I'm excited from a year from now. I'm not going to be in a prep in a year. I'm taking 2 years off right now just to build. So next time you see me, I'll be a big girl. I'll be big.
We'll see if we can fit her in the screen, everyone.
So wait on for sure. Yeah, I'll be building for sure. 2 years, and then I'll think about a prep, because I mean the next time I prep, like I'm going for the pro card. That's the goal. So I got a bit of building to do. A year from now, hopefully I'll have graduated college. I just signed a year-long lease like this week, and I think after it's done, I plan on leaving Minnesota.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Every winter, I think about that myself. But then the spring comes along, and I'm just like, well, maybe next year. And that's been happening. I'm 28, and that's been happening ever since I graduated too, when I was 22. So yeah, that's. Do not get caught in that trap. Then, if you're gonna leave right now. I mean, my little brother just moved to San Diego. He's 24. He just moved there like June or something like that. So yeah, I'm gonna go visit him in August. Actually, in a couple of weeks. So yeah, that should be great. But yeah, get out while you can. I mean, geez, don't be like me and all of a sudden you're 28 and you're just like, God, I'm stuck here. I'm stuck here for the foreseeable future. I mean, at least so. Yeah, you dig yourself a hole. But yeah, that is great. So, how are you? I mean, you're young. You're younger than me. I'm 28. Like I said, do you still find ways to like get out and enjoy life? Because I talked to some of these bodybuilders I have on that are just as young as you, like they have no lives at all. I'm gonna be completely honest, and they will be the first ones to admit it too. You try to balance that because it's like when you're that young and you don't have a life, that's the most depressing thing in the world to me, honestly. Where it's like you got to go out every once in a while, to go do that. So how do you try to find a balance between that, where like you're not just focused on bodybuilding every single moment of the day?
Yeah, I mean, prep. I think prep is a little different.
Oh yeah,
Prep,
we'll prep. Yeah, obviously you're gonna be focused on it, but I mean,
yeah,
like in the off season, please tell me that you're not just like, oh man, I gotta go to the gym when you're like out at a bar. You're just thinking about going to the gym the next day or something. Yeah.
not at all. So I I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit different, and I'm very thankful. Like I'm this way. To me, the last place I would want to be on a Saturday night is a bar. Like I had like my like little like party phase. It lasted like a month, and it was I hated it. Like I that is just not what I want to do. I love like I'll go to like dinner with my girls. Like we'll get drinks there, but like the bar, I can't do it. Like I am just not. I hate bars. I hate bars, and it's I don't know. It's just the bar setting. Like it's gross. Like you're so tight up against everyone. You're sweaty. Like not for me. I can't do it. Um, so I don't have to worry about like the that. I would say I do make time for the things that are important to me, and I definitely think I have a life. Like I'm genuinely so happy. I love what I do. To me, like the idea though of like going to the gym and like doing like some of these things, like it is my idea of fun, which is like weird, but like I'm very lucky I have it because it makes this sport a lot easier. But I do make time for my friends. Like we go to dinners, you know. I have a cabin. I like to go there on weekends. I have a horse. I go ride my horse. Like I feel like I'm always doing fun things.
I curse my parents to this day for not having a cabin. Like I have to mooch off of friends, and that is, I mean, it's I still to this day I was like, oh hey, you guys want to play? So yeah, I go up to a cabin probably like 4 or 5 times out of the every summer, but still, it's like yeah, I wish I still had it. And you ride horses too, and I like horses too as well. There was my grandparents had a farm in Nebraska where we would go, and you know they had 5 horses there, I think, or whatever like that. They had my favorite horse. Excuse me, my favorite horse. He was a black horse. I nicknamed him Stally because I was like 5 years old. Everyone, don't laugh at me for that. One blue eye and one black eye. Like it was the coolest thing ever. And that thing, whenever it would see me come, it would just run up to the gate and just do it. All the other horses didn't really care for me, but you know that was the one that really did. So yeah, that is definitely cool. But yeah, I mean, again, I hear this all the time from guys who are like, "Yeah, I want to like you talk to all these girls that are like in shape and stuff like that. Like how do I meet them and stuff like that?" It's like, well, you're not gonna meet them at bars. I tell them that every single time. Where it's like, if you go to a bar expecting to meet one there, you're not gonna find it. So I was like, yeah, you gotta like go to a gym or something like that. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I was like, I have met probably 2 health and fitness people that like go to bars a lot, and I'm just like, okay, first of all, genetic wise, I'll swap genes with you then that you're able to maintain somewhat like that. But yeah, that is definitely not the case. But again, you know, everyone go and follow Maddy on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below. You will get inspired, get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies, and you know, maybe get a workout in there. But again, Maddy, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I would probably give a shout out to 2 people. First, I'll give a shout out to my coach Jeff. If it wasn't for Jeff, like I wouldn't be here today. He's the man with the plan. I really just follow everything he says. I have it easy. He tells me exactly what to do. I just got to do it. Second person would be my boyfriend Sean. He's been my ride or die. So thankful for him. Like I said, if it wasn't for this prep, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And just having someone in my life that's so supportive of my goals.
She got tongue twisted to everyone, okay? So at least I feel better now. I feel better now.
It just means the world to me. So appreciate both of you guys a lot.
Absolutely. Well, I'll leave a link down below. If you send me both their Instagram page, I'll leave a link down below for them as well. Because yeah, I've always said the significant others of this podcast are the real unsung heroes. So you know, shout out to that as well because they put up with all the stuff on the side. But again, you guys go and give her a follow. Really appreciate it. And Maddy, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your journey. It was a delight to talk to you, and I cannot wait to see where you're at the next time we have you on.
Yes, thank you so much again.
I appreciate it. Well, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.